Say your own name in your head right now. It feels like the core of who you are. It appears on your identification, on your mail, and in the speech of everyone you know. If someone yells it across a crowded room, your heart rate spikes and your head turns before you make a decision to look. Your brain automatically reacts to that sequence of sounds. But for more than 99% of human existence, there were no birth certificates, no written records, and no formal languages with alphabet systems. If you were dropped into a band of hunter-gatherers 70,000 years ago on the frozen plains of Europe or the dry savannas of East Africa, how would the people around you refer to you? Did early humans have names, or did they just point, grunt, and gesture at whoever was standing in front of them? The answer to that question reveals one of the most important evolutionary shifts in the history of life on Earth. The invention of personal names transformed how our ancestors survived, worked together, and built human society. Animals across the planet communicate differently. They make sounds constantly, and some of those sounds carry high complexity. Bottlenose dolphins use unique whistle patterns. Each dolphin develops its own sound pattern during its first year of life. When a dolphin uses this whistle, it broadcasts its presence to the pod. Vervet monkeys use distinct alarm calls for different predators. One bark warns that an eagle is swooping down, sending the troop into the bushes. Another call warns of a leopard, driving them into thin tree branches where the predator cannot follow. These animal vocalizations have a severe limitation. They apply only to the present moment and immediate space. A monkey can warn others about a leopard standing 30 feet away, but a monkey cannot sit at a nesting site at night and warn its offspring about a leopard that lives 3 miles west and hunts near the river on hot afternoons. An animal call announces an immediate threat or broadcasts the caller's own location. Humans do something different. We create sound labels for other people, allowing us to talk about someone who is absent, miles away, or long dead. Cognitive scientists describe this as the ability to use sounds to refer to things, places, and individuals that are not present in space or time. Without this ability, a personal name cannot exist. Imagine living in a world before names existed. If you are standing next to a member of your band, you can interact with them directly. You can hand them a piece of meat, brush dirt off their shoulder, or gesture toward a trail. But the moment that person walks over a ridge and out of sight, they vanish from your social world. You cannot ask anyone where that person went, nor can you tell your child to bring them a weapon. Planning a hunt becomes impossible when you cannot assign 3 people to wait in ambush while 2 others drive a herd of deer toward them. Most importantly, you cannot track reputation. This is the stake that made personal names a matter of life and death for early humans. Survival for a hunter-gatherer was never an individual effort. If you tried to survive alone on the prehistoric landscape, you died. You needed a group to share calories when your own hunt failed, to keep watch while you slept, and to defend you when a competing band tried to push you off your water source. As early human bands grew larger, tracking social relationships became a difficult problem. Primates maintain group cohesion through physical grooming. A chimpanzee spends up to 20% of its waking day picking ticks and dirt out of another chimpanzee's fur. This contact releases endorphins, lowers heart rates, and builds social trust, creating and strengthening bonds between individuals. Evolutionary biologist Robin Dunbar demonstrated that human brain architecture is optimized to track 150 stable social relationships. Physical grooming fails at that scale. There are not enough hours in a day to groom 150 people. If you tried to groom everyone in a group that size to keep them friendly, you would starve to death because you would have no time left to forage or hunt. Language evolved to replace physical grooming. Talking allowed an early human to groom multiple individuals at the same time using sound instead of hands. You could sit by a fire and talk to 5 people at once while repairing a spear or roasting meat. This vocal grooming works only when you can share information about other people. You must know who is generous and who is selfish. Group members need to learn who stays to fight a cave hyena and who abandons hunting partners to die. It matters who can find water during a drought and who fails to carry their weight. Without personal names, you cannot pass this information along. You cannot gossip, and without gossip, bad actors within a group face no social consequences for their behavior unless caught in the act by the entire group. Imagine you are out on a foraging run with another member of your band. That person hoards a cache of bird eggs, refuses to share them with the group, and pushes you into a thorn bush when you try to take your portion. You return to the camp in the evening. If your language lacks personal sound tags, you cannot tell the elders what happened unless the offender is standing right there for you to point at. And if you point at them, it escalates into a fight. Once your group invents sound tags for individuals, everything changes. You can sit down near the fire, out of earshot of the offender, and communicate a message. The person who lives in the northern cave shelter, the one with the scarred knee, took food that belonged to the group. In that moment, a sound traveling through the air becomes a tool of enforcement. The individual who stole the eggs suffers damage to their reputation without a single punch being thrown. When the next hunt is organized, the rest of the band might refuse to include them. When the band distributes food during a harsh winter, that person gets the smallest, toughest piece of meat. A personal name turned reputation into something that could travel faster than a human could walk. It created accountability across distance and time. It allowed early humans to remove free riders, reward reliable partners, and enforce social rules without relying on constant violence. How did these early names sound? They did not sound like modern formal names. You would not find an Ice Age hunter named Richard or an early gatherer named Elizabeth. In modern industrial societies, names are arbitrary abstract tags given to you at birth before you have performed a single action or developed a personality. You carry that fixed label for your entire life, regardless of what you do. In early human societies, names functioned as descriptions. They were descriptive nicknames that changed as a person moved through different stages of life. Anthropological studies of isolated modern hunter-gatherer communities show us how this worked. Among groups like the Hadza in Tanzania or the San people of southern Africa, individuals possess multiple names throughout their lifetime, tied to physical events. A newborn might initially be called something that translates to small one, crying boy, or nightborn, referencing the time or condition of birth. As that child grew and performed a memorable action, the group replaced the old tag. A child who survived a bite from a puff adder became Snakeleg. A young hunter able to track animals through thick brush became Quiet Step. An adult who developed a broken bone that healed incorrectly became Limping One. Words that imitate natural sounds played a major role in early name creation. An early human good at mimicking a bird call during a hunt might be referred to by that call. A person born during a violent rainstorm might carry a sound that mimicked thunder. These early sound tags served as functional tools designed to instantly summon a clear mental picture of a person in the minds of everyone listening. When did our ancestors first acquire the vocal anatomy required to speak these distinct sound tags? If you look at the fossil record, you can trace the anatomical changes needed for complex vocalization. A chimpanzee cannot speak human words because its vocal anatomy prevents it, despite its intelligence. A chimpanzee's voice box sits high in the throat near the nasal cavity. This layout allows breathing and swallowing at the same time without choking, but it leaves little room in the mouth and throat to manipulate air and form vowel and consonant sounds. Around 600,000 years ago, in a common ancestor we shared with Neanderthals, the voice box dropped lower into the throat. This created a large vocal chamber above the vocal cords, allowing the tongue, lips, and soft palate to break continuous sound into distinct phonetic blocks. At the same time, the canal in the spine that carries nerves to the chest muscles widened. This allowed control over breathing, enabling our ancestors to hold their breath and push air out in controlled bursts, providing the mechanism required to speak a sentence. Neanderthals possessed this lowered voice box. They also carried the genes responsible for the motor control of the mouth and tongue needed for fluid speech. Their neck bone anchoring the tongue muscles matches your own. This biological evidence tells us that long before modern humans migrated out of Africa, early human species had the capacity to generate distinct, reproducible vocal sounds. They could produce a wide spectrum of unique acoustic signatures. Given the intense social pressures of their environment, they used those sounds to identify one another. Consider what happens inside your brain when someone speaks your name. Brain scans show distinct activity when subjects hear various sounds. When you hear a random sound, like a door slamming or a bird chirping, your auditory system processes the noise. When you hear a generic word, language processing areas in the left hemisphere activate. When you hear your own personal name, something more complex occurs. A network across both hemispheres activates instantly. Your brain engages the region involved in self-awareness, triggers the area associated with memory retrieval, and activates its emotional center. Your brain processes your name as an existential signal, treating it as a direct extension of yourself. This cognitive link allowed human social structures to scale beyond simple animal bands. Without personal names, individual ownership cannot exist, preventing someone from claiming a hand axe for a hunter with a scarred arm. Complex kinship systems also require names to track lineages across generations. Without them, you cannot know that a stranger entering your valley is your cousin's child, born to a band that moved 50 miles east 20 years ago. Names created abstract connections that held large populations together. They allowed two humans who had never met before to establish instant trust based on shared social networks. If a stranger walked into your camp and could speak the name of your uncle, that stranger became a guest. This social technology also created a terrifying penalty: exile. In a world where every individual was named and tracked within a social network, losing your place in that network led to death. Banishment meant the group spoke your name with contempt or erased it entirely from their stories. The group forced you into the wilderness, separated from campfire protection, unable to leverage trust, exchange trade goods, or call for help when injury struck. The ultimate consequence of naming each other was the creation of the individual. Before names, an early human was an interchangeable unit within a troop, defined by presence and immediate strength. Once humans assigned acoustic tags to each other, a person became an entity that existed in the minds of others, even when absent. A person held a history that survived them, along with debts to pay, promises to remember, and a reputation that persisted after death. Every time you introduce yourself to a stranger, fill out a form, or call out to a friend across a street, you are using an ancient technology developed on the prehistoric savanna. You produce a short burst of sound that pulls a human mind out of the background noise of the world, anchoring their identity to yours across space and time. Your name is the oldest story told about you. It began as a descriptor shouted over a campfire to mark who could be trusted, who was dangerous, and who belonged to the group. Hundreds of thousands of years later, that simple acoustic tool still holds the entire human social world together.